All right. Welcome to episode 49 of the Embodied Business Inspired Brain podcast. Today, we're going to be diving into what I'm titling Stop Repeating Yourself, Curriculum Design, Time, and Profits. And as always, we start with what's in process, what's in progress. So I'm going to pass the baton to you, Chantill.
Yeah, that's the way it goes, right? If you do the introduction, you don't have to start.
That's right.
I love that. Well, I'm not really prepared. Let's see. Let me think for a second. What's in process? What's in progress? I feel like there's a lot. I'll just speak to one thing that I'm aware of, which is these wild swings in the way I handle stress right now. And so I find in certain contexts or certain domains, I think it's like topic specific, right? Like wasting time, being late, or getting lost. I'm like completely out of my mind. Like right now, like I'm so triggered immediately by if I feel like I'm wasting time or I'm out of time or like Google Maps, directions, like whatever it might be, or traffic right now is really insane. I don't enjoy being out right now. The Sacramento area is always really awful traffic wise, but it's extra worse right now, right? Because everybody is, out shopping and doing the things. But then this weekend, I discovered that a mouse or a rat in my garage has chewed through innumerable. I don't even know yet how many hoses and cords and things inside of my new motorcycle. And so I have to take the motorcycle apart. I take the tank off and the fairings off. And I do not know how to do these things. I don't really want to do these things. And yet I have to. And I was very lucky. My mom and dad were here. Well, my dad lives here, but my mom was here this weekend. And the three of us were out there doing all this work. And I just, we kept coming. I dropped a screw into the gas tank. And all these things. And then we saw that one of the fuel lines had been completely chewed apart, chewed off, completely. It's like I could just take all of those things and just be take a deep breath and feel well, you just keep going. There's just no choice. You just keep going. You keep trying to, it's just not easy to take a motorcycle apart. Bolts strip and they don't come off and you can't get where you need to get and you don't have the right tools. We had to go out and buy new tools to get into the small spaces and a long magnet to get the screw out of the tank and all these things. And I'm just so curious, I think, about how my nervous system is more sensitive to some things and less sensitive, or I have greater resilience in other areas. So I've just been kind of sitting with that over the last 24 hours. I'm just staying curious. And then I had this beautiful call this morning with my Polyvagal Institute group. And we were, our facilitator was talking about the neuroscience of curiosity and how there's a cascade of things that happen in your brain and in your nervous system when you are being curious. And so I've been thinking just about that, about that is the tool right now, is to just stay curious rather than go into I'm so dysregulated and I'm so off my game and I'm so this and I'm so that. And which is the story rabbit hole that we try not to go down. So that's what's going on over here.
You just gave me a lot of insights. And I know you probably don't, you're not aware, you're just sharing, right? So thank you. One of the insights that I'm just going to kind of piggyback on was you said, well, I have resilience in some areas and, and in some areas we don't, right? And I think one of the things that works so well about us working together, although maybe sometimes is slightly irritating to each other as well, is that we tend to have resiliency in different, we tend to have polarities in our resiliency and polarities in our lack of resilience. And what I always just sort of said, well, such and such doesn't bother me, but I get really triggered by this, for me, I think anybody who listens to this podcast knows that I've struggled off and on with persistent pain. And so that can be a trigger for me. But I never said to myself, oh, but I'm resilient in these other areas. So I just want to say thank you for couching it like that, because I was always sort of just being like, it's neutral. Well, it doesn't bother me. So it's a neutral thing.
I see.
Versus no, actually, there's resilience in these other areas. So I don't know, like a light bulb went off when you shared that perspective. So thank you. I'm going to lean in. I'm going to talk about my parents as well. Sometimes I feel like we're on here talking about being in the sandwich generation, which sometimes makes it feel like it's really hard. But, like being in the middle,
really hard.
The middle of the sandwich cannot always be easy. But today I'm actually happy to be in the sandwich generation because my parents all are still with me. I'm going to be celebrating my father's 85th birthday. He has great health. I mean, he's 85 and he has very good health for an 85-year-old. And I'm excited to celebrate him. And what I know about my perspective about the nervous system and joy is how when things like this come up, I'm like, okay, well, how can I expand joy during this Monday afternoon? Right? Sometimes on a Monday, it's not always a joy-filled moment or a joy-filled day. So,
well, it is for us with our mental health Mondays.
Yes. Great segue.
Yeah. Well, I just appreciate too. I was thinking about your message. We had to, typically we meet, and we've talked about this in a recent episode. We meet for a short meeting every Monday to kind of set the tone for really easing ourselves into productivity and deep work or whatever needs to happen today on this Monday to facilitate the rest of the week. And you were just so sweet this morning about like acknowledging how much regulation your dad has brought you over your life and feeling like as your mom is struggling with some things that, this is your opportunity to really lean in and celebrate and how that's what you were focusing on today. And I wanted to kind of lift that up because it is just a beautiful knowing, I think, to be able to see our relationships through this lens and then be able to optimize them even more.
100%. This framework and this knowing in personal, professional life is just, it's wonderful. So I'm thrilled to share that. So as we shift from our what's in progress, what's in process, we are now going to move into sort of the nuts and bolts today of what we're going to be talking about. And this is something that Chantill and I have a lot of years of experience, which is bringing teaching and educational design to people in the service-based economy. So we encourage you to keep listening if this is you. And Chantill and I are both our multi-decades of experience, teaching, hour by hour, working with people, which really grounded me as a young person, allowed me to become a great expert in what I did. And then as my needs changed, particularly my need for more time, because when I was younger, I had a lot more time. I didn't have as many pulls in so many directions with family obligations. I could just work a lot. So I worked many, many, many hours. I know Malcolm Gladwell, I think, has a connection to that, 10,000 hours and becoming an expert. And I know, Chantill, you have that, worked well beyond 10,000 hours. And so have I in that field. But what we know is one of the things about curriculum design is you don't need to work 10,000 hours before you step into curriculum design. And what curriculum design does for you if you work within the service-based economy, which the US economy and many economies across the world are moving more towards service-based positions and work versus, products, is that you can just work hour for hour for hour and you're unable to leverage your expertise and you're sort of stuck. We used to call it like the hamster wheel or the rat race, I guess is an older term for it. And Chantill and I, because of our working with people literally hands-on, it felt almost impossible to move, how do you take an expertise and design it into a curriculum? And even if something is body-based, like Pilates or like something like nervous system work, you design curriculum around it. And your clients or customers or students or patients, however you refer to them, can gain a lot from curriculum design, which is a little bit more knowledge-based because most people, like when you think about us, we are embodied brains. So yes, we learn through our bodies, and maybe you teach a body skill like Pilates or yoga, but we're also intellectual, right? And so curriculum design can support both. You can support people in understanding intellectual concepts around whatever it is you teach, whether it's Feldenkrais, gyrotonic, meditation, etc., some sort of somatics. But you can also use curriculum design to support leading people through classes and things like that. But we wanted today to just dive into a little bit about how curriculum design can, number one, stop you from repeating yourself. Because I know I used to get really frustrated with saying after a certain time of teaching, I really want you to understand this concept. And now I have to repeat myself again. And sometimes that was just a little exhausting. And so curriculum design can help you really take your expertise and teach the basics or high level to people, and can also really help you get your time back and allow you to earn money while you're not showing up live with people. So it allows you to really leverage your expertise. So I'd be curious, Chantill, as you think about, because you are a real pioneer in getting online and developing curriculum, can you kind of share just a little bit like what your experience was like when you first started curriculum design many years ago when many people were not doing it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it was just damn hard because nobody was doing it, So
Yeah.
trying to take, take a process that was in person and intimate and hands-on and replicate it online was not easy. But I think one of the things that I would say happened right away, and that what we noticed during COVID, which was so surprising actually, is that you might think that your expertise or your knowledge won't translate well, or it's overly complex, or maybe you are doing something that's hands-on. But the truth is, when you develop a transformative container that it meets the student where they are and offers a psychologically safe place and gives people options and different opportunities for the way that they engage with you and with the work that you're sharing, it just fosters more autonomy, more motivation, greater connection. And what we really saw, and I saw that early on in the beginning, like, oh, this is a beautiful platform for people to kind of decide like how close or how far they want to be, in terms of the work or the engagement, and that felt really safe for people. And so people showed up better or more fully. And there was a deeper level of connection, like to be able to have these conversations. We had like more time and space for rich conversations, and question asking and discourse that, when you're in a confined 1 hour or 2 hour opportunity once a week, once a month, whatever it might look like, you just got to get to business, right? You got to meet the contract. You got to, and then that's it. They're out the door. You're onward. They're onward. So, but after COVID or during COVID, when we were really helping people take their work online, particularly people in the Pilates, yoga, and massage therapy worlds, we worked with dance teachers and some other things. People were like, my students are doing better. My students are progressing more quickly now than they did when they were coming into the studio. And for me, that was like, oh, yes, because you're able to engage them differently. You're able to share with them more information so their understanding is expanded. They're more excited, but they're also more autonomous, right? Like this, when you have somebody there kind of always doing it for you and getting you the thing you need or telling you how to do it, repeating yourself, there's no impetus for them to take it on and really embody it, like really take it in. And I just can't, just so many, numerous times, right, that we would hear from teachers like, my students are actually making more progress than they did when we were, doing our regular thing. So I think that has been one of the most profound opportunities for me, in offering online curriculum and engagement. So there just was a really rich, expansive opportunity for connecting and helping people to embody what you were teaching.
I love that. And you're reminding me of that. And I even remember some of the educators we worked with were working with, some pelvic floor issues. And the
Yep.
concept came up, well, they actually felt more comfortable in their home to
Yeah.
sometimes work through some of those exercises because they're in a comfortable space. And I was like, oh my goodness, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times it's important to realize is that education, like we have these beliefs that it's best served in the one-on-one model or the private model or the in-person model. And yes, it's good. We're not saying it's not. And there so much you also miss out if you never support your clients and maybe intellectually understanding more material about what you're doing, or you're unable to have them self-reflect in a way that isn't like, oh, the clock's ticking, the next client's coming in, like that kind of pressure. And I always remember as a teacher in my studio, I was always really challenged by, I know that this client will be able to do X, Y, or Z better if they actually understand ABC.
Yeah.
But they're resistant to learning ABC because they're in a studio and they want to put their feet in straps. If you're in the Pilates world, that's something that clients always love, right? And so there's this resistance to sometimes learning the knowledge, even though the knowledge will literally is the thing that's going to push them forward to be better at their physical practice.
Yeah, and I hear you saying that's conscious resistance, but what about the unconscious resistance that comes up when we're maybe not in a space from a nervous system perspective or physically or emotionally, like it's all connected, but we're not able to take in the information in the way it's being delivered. So when you develop online curriculum, you are able to design it in a way that takes into account learner variability. And this is a concept we bring forth from Universal Design for Learning, which is a brain-based concept, into what we teach and what we know, which is a body-based design, framework. So I really think it just opens the door, right, for people to be in choice, which creates autonomy, which creates motivation, and for us as the educator to afford a human being the opportunity again to like move in close or step back or have the video on or have the video off or listen to a thing versus watch a thing, or watch a thing rather than read a thing, or read a thing rather than, or listen to 10 minutes at a time rather than sitting through a whole thing for an hour. Like this flexibility in the way we ingest information, I think eliminates a lot of the obstacles that an in-person or one-on-one kind of confined container can prohibit.
I love that. What I'd love to do next is sort of help us understand, like, what are Chantill and I talking about when we're talking about curriculum design? So when we support educators in designing curriculum design, we are supporting people specifically, we call it transformational curriculum design. So we're trying to take people usually from A to B, but maybe from A to Z or A to M, partially down the alphabet, where people can see that they have made improvement. Because for people, we know in motivational science, if people don't feel like their competence in something has improved, or they can't measure that they've improved, they don't feel like they want to keep going. So one of the things that we do is we support clients and or educators who design curriculum. What can you design or create that is measurable so that your client can maybe take something, as Chantill was alluding to, that they were unaware of, make them aware of it, and then measuring that to notice their improvement. So that's one of the things that we do, because we know that motivation in online spaces can be next to nothing. So what can happen when curriculum is poorly designed online is nobody logs on, nobody completes, nobody keeps going. Like, it's very low. But the beauty about what we do, because we really support people in designing curriculum design that's more for cohorts, like groups of people between 6 and 12, is that it's a smaller design and you're better able to support your people moving forward. But so what it is your design, when you take what you do and you say, how do I get people from A to M, let's say, a lot of time sometimes we come up against this resistance of, well, everybody's different. There is no way that there's no clear path that I take an individual path to get everybody from A to M. Yes, you probably do. And we want to encourage you to go a little bit deeper and look, what is that underlying thread? Because most likely there is one where you're taking everybody through a step-by-step process, and then everybody needs different support at different junctions. And so when you're able to move past that feeling of, no, everybody's individual, I can't get everybody going through the same thing, because I always just teach. Sometimes people say I teach to the body in front of me, or I teach to the person in front of me. It doesn't mean that you can't do that in a curriculum, but it does mean that you have a lot more clarity about what you do. And then you're much more clear about, well, where do the people need help? Where do they get stuck? We sometimes call those bottlenecks within curriculum design. So that's what it is. And then what the way we teach it is, I mean, back in the day, you'd get a binder in the mail, I think, for distance learning. I mean, you could do that. Nowadays, most people will log on to an online learning management software or platform, or you email curriculum out, and you're really taking people through a process. And I'm going to contrast this with what curriculum design is not. So curriculum design is not a vault. It is not a list of resources. Like, the reality is that's what YouTube is. That's what the internet is. That's probably what AI is at this point in the end of 2024. We'll see in a few years if I can still say that. But it's basically just few people will pay for that because there already is free information out there, right? And so it's really about taking people from one place to another. And that is where you get a lot of the aha moments, where people get excited about the learning because they see themselves go along a path. And so a couple other things that Chantill and I wanted to share about curriculum design, because we know that curriculum design, it's not for everyone. We've taught enough teachers, we've worked with enough people in the industry. It is absolutely for some people and it's not for others. So we're going to dive into, like, if you've been thinking about creating a course, thinking about launching a course, here are some things that you can think about. Like, if you are someone who curriculum design is for you, number one, if there's a part of you that likes to teach. So some people are not as interested in teaching, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You may be incredibly satisfied with working hour by hour. You've got strict cutoffs. You feel good. You're happy with it. Great. I wanted more. So I love teaching my clients, and I wanted more. And so curriculum design is absolutely for anybody who wants to be an authority within their field, to be seen more as an expert. I don't like to think of myself as always having a big ego, but I do know that I like to feel like I know my shit and I know my stuff. And I like to feel that I have an authority in X, Y, or Z places that I design courses in. The act of designing a course will usually help you learn and understand even more about what it is you're teaching, which is quite cool. And I like to continue to learn. And so as I'm talking, if you can say like, oh yeah, I can see myself like that. I can see that there are many times when I'm teaching or working with clients, I want to teach them more, but the container in which I'm currently serving them doesn't allow me that. That's an indication that curriculum design is something that can really support you. One of the things I think that gets me so excited about working with Chantill is not only her business, but her life and her lifestyle. And as you heard, right now, she's got some rats in her motorcycle, but when the rats or the mice are not in her motorcycle, she will be, motorcycling across multiple continents and all these amazing things. I won't say anything yet, but she's got lots of great plans coming up. And so if you're someone who wants to say, I want to still make money, and I want to still serve my clients when I'm on a break, rejuvenating myself, when I'm on a break because my work is my life and I want a work-life balance, right? And so curriculum design absolutely does that. We were Chantill and I, before this, we got on, we were talking about a client who was able to really leverage this curriculum design when she sort of took a summer off.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of just saying, okay, clients, go work with all the other teachers in the studio, she was able to say, for this finite period of time, you're going to work with me in this container so that there's not such a stop and start. It doesn't necessarily mean that some of her clients may not work with other teachers, but it doesn't mean that their connection to her is completely severed because she's off, right? Because she's not in studio or in practice or however you do your work. And so I absolutely remember a life pre-kid, but I'm in my kid season of my life. And so like that flexibility of taking summers off, vacations off, winters off is very much easier when I have an online platform and a curriculum where people feel that just because I'm off, they don't lose all the support. They have resources, they have access. They don't just have resources, they have a curriculum that they can keep following. And so that's who's it for. And then, Chantill, do you want to dive into who it isn't for, or do you want me to keep leading?
No, I'm happy to. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about like, well, what's the criteria? Like how, basically like how honest do we want to be about who it's not for?
Yeah.
And, I mean, truly, it's like, one of the things I'm tired of doing is trying to convince people that are like tech phobic that this is a thing they should do and that we'll make it easy enough so that anybody can do it. And it's not that that's not true, but if you are tech phobic and you're just like, I don't actually want to be engaged in the online space, nobody should convince you to create an online course. And to be really clear, so you can further self-select, the work that we're talking about, this transformative and embodied curriculum design, is not just about online curriculum design. It happens to be, that we do that, and you can leverage this designing for in-person workshops, retreats, all kinds of things. So it doesn't have to be, it can be hybrid. We do a lot of that. And some people are designing courses just for the online space. But if you just do not have any interest, you have super resistance, go do something else, exciting and useful with your time. I think people who don't really need to or want to reach more people, like if you feel like your practice or your business has enough people and you feel like you're making the kind of impact that you really want to make, you're making kind of legacy impact on whatever level feels good. This is also just not something you need to spend your time and money doing. Like you will lose motivation. You'll feel bummed out about it. I would say there's one person in all of the years that I feel like that was true for. And it was somebody I had I had a personal relationship with, or I had a professional relationship with. And I think she just didn't know. But the truth was she didn't. She was like, I actually just don't need to do this. And trying to get myself to do it, spend the time and the energy is depleting me and taking my attention away from other things. So we really want to encourage you to be very, very curious about your motivation, your inclinations, your desire. But impact is one thing. Like, do you want more people? Do you want to make more impact? I know it's something that I feel compelled by so deeply, and Anne too. Like, one of the common themes of all of our conversations is how do we share this amazing work that we do with more people? And it's not just about revenue. It's about impact. And so for us, that's so clear. So this is just something that we would invite you to consider for yourself. And then if you just are not really a teacher, like if you're listening and you're a therapist, or maybe you're a physical therapist, or you're a talk therapist, or you're an attorney. I'm trying to think of some of the kind of other domains we've worked in. You're in maybe organization and leadership or change management.
Parenting coach.
If you're a parent, if you're a parenting coach. But I feel like if you're a parenting coach, you actually do like teaching. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be in that. But there are definitely fields, so many fields of expertise that would benefit from sharing and creating education for your clientele or your audience. But you really have to want to teach. You have to feel a connection to connecting with others and supporting them and being of service to them in this way where you want to facilitate them having a transformation. And I would say that's another nuance of like who this is or isn't for. Like you want to facilitate an opportunity for people to really improve their lives. Like that's what this program, the people are suited for this program. That's who you are. If you're just like, yeah, I just want to, because we've had this on occasion too. Like I just want to create a vault. I'm just going to create. It's like after all of this, you're just going to create a vault, like like a subscription. It's like okay, if you just want to create a vault of information, or a subscription where you're dripping out information and you're not really touching and interacting with people, this is also not for you. So I think that's probably a pretty good start.
I think it is too. And so if you have questions, please reach out to us. And we always encourage you to subscribe and or leave us a review or like or comment below. And we will drop a link in the show notes about how to participate in our upcoming embodied course creation program that'll be running in January 2025. If you're listening to this years later, most likely we will have a waitlist form or it'll be running it again. So just feel free to click on over.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.